We have still one person short of quorum, hopefully they will show up. So right now, we can't conduct any business. HVAC project update. We want to let you know where we're at.
Steve.
Go ahead,
Well, you probably heard last night, all the equipment we've been long waiting for is in at the rigger's yard. ATC is wrapping up some work on connector for one of the units, her connector that is, and gearing up. I think we're scheduled for the weekend after next.
the 6th.
Yeah, to on Saturday, I'll have the crane here. It probably won't be the final fix, but I'll get everything up on the roof. Then I'll come back a couple days to a week later, probably the next weekend. Got some ductwork to get up there, finalize and go on these.
Yeah, it'll be a smaller crane.
And then you've probably got 2 to 3 weeks of connecting work and insulating and so forth. We'll start heavy on the commissioning, which will probably be another 4 weeks after that. before that's complete.
So you're looking at the end of November before we're running. And probably the end of December before it's signed
Yeah,
off.
I would-
Yeah, it should be running by the end of November.
Yeah.
They've been running all the wiring and stuff like that. It's basically, it's pretty much
Yeah.
there, so. Just a
get
matter
the
of-
final units
yeah.
there.
They've been diligent about that, being here for that. I think. Yeah, this Saturday, next Saturday is a big deal. It's a big pick. Can't see them not getting everything up there what they need, except for like the ductwork. That's to me. But seems to be going pretty good. They're in here.
What's all up with the top?
The insulation, they have to insulate. They can't put it up until they get the rest of the equipment. They don't want to blow up the roof and stuff like that. I don't
Well,
think
no,
they
I
have.
understand
I don't think they
why.
have it all completed yet. That's my.
But he'll put it up as he needs it.
Yeah.
Versus it just banging around. Well, he'll get all heavy stuff up there on Saturday,
Right.
and as he's assembling, he'll lift pieces up there that are too big to carry it. So it's not blowing around.
So we're worried, yeah, I mean, if we've got a crane here, and all the equipment's here. All right, why can't we put the ductwork up there?
Well, example of today would have been a bad day for it to be up there.
And it's, when we say. when
No,
we-
that's-
You're not gonna get it all done, is what you're trying to
Correct.
Right, they're not gonna get it all done in one shot. So they've got to
It's
get
got a
that
couple
stuff
weeks
lined up,
over.
and
After he gets it.
because they're gonna have insulation that has to go up there and all that.
I get it.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna skip 2 for now. Because I imagine that we can't really make any decisions on that until we have a quorum. Correct?
It could be discussed for the members present.
We
And
can discuss it. So, go ahead.
So you should have a change order in front of you. It's to document the reallocation of funds within ATC's contract value budget. So it's an actual zero cost change order to his contract. Contract does not increase or release different changes. This is a summary sheet in the back with the numbers on it for the changes. Most of them are for existing conditions within the building to get around those conditions electrically for the most part. To get to where the new units are located. There's some additional ceiling work in there, and then there's a bunch of credits for allowances that do not need to be utilized for the project. So currently, there's a $67,000 surplus, if you will, of this contract value right now. And there's a few other items, maintenance items, if you will, within the facility that are being priced by the subcontractor. To see how that money should be allocated to take care of those issues by the contractors here on the job, and they get reimbursement for it from the state, wise to do it now. So So that's, we're waiting for some final pricing on those items.
So from us, all you would need is an approval on the change order, is that what you need?
Yeah. So, like I said, it's zero cost, so you're approving it.
Yeah.
It's just
it's
shuffling things around in the budget.
In this case, it's just a.
Yeah, it's just documenting there's different changes.
So. Does a zero cost change order really require any voter approval? You just by consensus say it's okay to move forward? I mean, it's not really changing. I mean, it changes the scope of the contract.
Like you said. Yeah, I don't think, I think it was just, you know, for, as part of the full disclosure and just part of the update, really, to show you where we are as we close in on the end of the project. And
All right. Then I think that that's fine as far as I'm concerned. I don't think we need to take a formal vote
no,
$0, yeah.
right, exactly. That's information
on it. Okay.
purposes.
So I think we're good. So 1, 1, and 1, 2 are done, correct? We're all good there?
Yeah.
All right, what's the budget and schedule of cash flows? I don't see anything in mind.
No, so I just kind of do that as a placeholder. We've been having some back and forth discussions. I think that at the next meeting for the approval of Rec 5, we can have an updated, you know, schedule of the draws and the cash flows. It's just a matter of making sure that what Downs accounting system is reflecting what the Exeter West Greenwich accounting system is showing. And I've seen the reports that Tish has provided. And, you know, as we've been saying all along, there's the bid amount there was the budget amount for the project for the general contractor. There was the bid amount, which we know was a couple of $100,000 under. We're under the bid amount right now. All the accounting shows that. There's another layer that Tish maintains, and that's the reimbursement flow from the PAYGO. So I just want to, before we float those documents, just want to give it, have a sit down and a discussion with Monica at Downs and with Tish and make sure that we're giving the committee what they need. There is an issue that I would like to, not an issue, but just a comment that I'd like to bring up. When we're talking about the schedule of draws and cash flow as it relates to budget, when we went out to bond for the 17, it eventually landed at 17.8 million. We had detailed all the amounts for each one of the projects. And just keep in mind that the project cost for the HVAC as cost estimated was 4.3 million. And then off of that project cost comes the soft cost and the contingency. So when you add 20% of soft cost of 4.3 million, 10% of contingency of 4.3 million, you're pushing on a budgetary report, you know, a $5.7 million budget expense. And we're way, way under that. So I just want to be clear to everybody that when we're talking about budget and in the cost of the project, that we want to make sure that we have the reference point from which we're talking. And I think generally for this committee, we're talking the bid amount. I think that that's what we're looking at, the 4.3, the 4.2 million bid amount versus the 4.3 project amount. And we're not even discussing soft costs
And
and.
the only time that would come into play in my mind is we bonded 17.8 million. And as long as we come in below 17.8 million, we all know the soft costs are part of that. So yes, the focus then is on the operational piece of the money as far as this committee should be concerned, because
Yeah,
the rest of it's just a percentage of whatever it winds up being in.
okay,
So.
So-
Okay,
yeah.
I mean, does that make sense to everybody? I mean. Any questions, or am I thinking about this the wrong way? Okay, approvals, we have to approve rec number 4.
Mike, have you got that? You need that? I didn't have that. Oh, right.
I think Mike's got it.
Steve, for your copious notes that you maintain.
So this rec number 4 is from ATC, the subcontractor to the HVAC work here at the school. As Bob mentioned, on top of that first sheet here, you see it's contract value 4.225573. So that change order did not move that amount, so he's just completing a regular term.
Oh, no, I didn't give you the right one. I didn't give you the right one.
Regular billing for the month.
Yeah.
If this is approved tonight, then we'll package that together, get it over to Chris and Bob, we'll get it signed off by the appropriate party, and then it goes to RISE for reimbursement. So tonight's motion for the approval of this is down on line 8. What the subcontractor is doing, and then just for information, what's left to bill on this contract is the numbers that are on there.
So if I'm reading this correctly, maybe there's something in here I'm missing. You're asking for $862,634.48, correct?
So go to page 2. So this is how these AIA work.
Yeah.
Column E, this period down at the bottom, 958, 492, that's his gross billing for the month. And when that's brought forward to page 1, and line item 5, 10% of that is retained.
Okay.
And
That's
that,
what I'm wondering.
yeah, and then you come out to that $800,000 number. So to date, 331,000 has been retained as its retention.
Flip this.
So that's why the front and back sheet numbers are different.
No, I understand that, but I'm familiar with a different format, which would
Right.
show the current period retainage. And this does not, this just shows the retainage in aggregate.
That's correct.
That's where I'm confused. So
Yep.
the form I'm familiar with, see the other part, too. So the form that I have to submit to my government entity has the current period as well as the overall, so. Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the $862,634? Okay, so I guess I made the motion. Second, all those in favor say aye. Okay, motion passes. Okay, remaining capital projects. Is there anything else we have to do? I've seen this other AIA document here from Toronto. Is there somewhere around here that we need to address this, or?
Bob actually has the original, and I just signed it after you okayed it, and
That's this one, is that the change order, the cover you're seeing?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's the, that just is, puts the change order that was discussed into the AIA format.
Okay. It's done this way.
Yeah, these projects are done in the AIA contract, general contract, and then all the AIA documents follow. Everything from change directives, to change orders, to billing, it's all within the AIA format.
Okay, so.
Yeah. In color.
I know, it's not color.
You wanna look at the thing, okay.
Playing the role of secretary. So this is the, what item is this? This is the update on
The second one.
So those were, so you got the cost estimates there, Lee, that you're looking at? Yeah. For Metcalf and Waterloo.
I'll give these back on.
All the time. It's easy.
So what was the purpose of bringing in O'Day to take a look at the Metcalf Elementary School?
it's part of right requirements that a structural engineer review the structure whenever we change the roof.
Okay. So why would we put an addition insulation? Is that a requirement now by code?
Okay, so yes, what Wright wants you to do is to meet the latest energy code, and that usually means adding insulation to an existing roof. There are basically two ways of doing it. One is like we have in most of our houses, to provide insulation at the ceiling joist space. What Wright likes to see done is to create insulation outside the envelope. So they have us put rigid insulation, then plywood, then you have a venting board, and then shingles on top of it. That's ideally what they like to do. We had provided that method of doing it during the stage 2 submittal, and we wanted to maintain it as we moved into this phase of the project. But upon further structural investigations, the structural engineer found that at Metcalf, this structure is made up of steel beams with a tectum deck that is supported by bulk tees. And I apologize. I wanted to blow all these pictures up for you, but our power is out, so I just had to rely on these. But this shows you the condition above the ceilings at Metcalf. We think that originally that building had a cathedral ceiling in it. Later on, they added the suspended ceiling. In previous projects, we've known that once you open up the ceiling tile, you run into all this wire that was done over decades, some of it done by parents to run internet throughout. And so that was a reason why we wanted to stay away from trying to insulate the space at the ceiling height. However, the structural engineer found that what happens is that when you insulate outside the sheathing, the heat from the inside of the building doesn't get to the shingles because now it's well insulated. And so that you don't experience the same snow melt that you currently do. So more snow accumulates, and it accumulates to an extent that the existing structure cannot support it. So we're faced with this difficulty. We don't want to deal with this. This would be a complete nightmare. It would be a totally new project involving rewiring of a lot of the systems above the ceiling. And if we did that and put insulation at the ceiling level, there is still a concern that the snow wouldn't melt because this space is not vented. In most of our attics at home, when you have the insulation at the ceiling height, that attic space is well ventilated. This one is not, so that heat would never get to the shingle. So we would have the same problem. So what we've done in the past, when we ran into this situation, because it can be common among the structure of buildings of that era, is that the structural engineer certifies that the existing structure cannot take the additional snow. And Wright gives us a waiver for the insulation requirement. We've done that recently on another project in Barrowville. And so we expect that the same process would be followed here. We just wanted to brief you on where we were with that.
Okay. So let's get on with the, I assume these are the schematic design estimates
So
roofs and site work?
yeah, now a couple of months ago, we sent the project out to be cost estimated and schematic design. They were estimated separately, Metcalf and Wawaloon. So the Wawaloon project, the schematic design came in at $1,667,000. The budget for that project was $2,493,000. So we're well within the budget there. We, as you asked us, we included an alternate design to replace the roof with a metal roof instead of a shingle roof. And that estimate came in at $2,979,000, which would be above the budget.
Metal roof would certainly shed the snow. And the difference budget-wise is 400 and change thousand metal.
That's,
I'm just asking.
yeah, I just to make it a little simpler. The current estimate for a shingle roof is 1.6 million.
Right.
The budget was 2.4. The shingles are 2.9. I mean, the metal is 2.9.
So 500,000.
Yes. There is a delta of almost 1.3 million between the shingle and the metal.
I'm not sure I understand that. Problem. It's already shingle, so there's probably less work to do to lay metal down. But metal goes down. I don't understand because I just brought it up before.
Yeah, and believe me, we would love to do a metal. We strive to do that all the time. We just usually cannot afford it. We do it in a very limited area of a building because it enhances an entrance or other elements, but it's always more expensive. It's always substantially more expensive.
Be real quick on this. I mean, you said you've done these roofs how many times in the last 14 years or so?
Well, that's the other piece. I mean, yeah, I mean, I was sitting at this table 10 years ago. We just paid for re-roofing this, and it was leaking within a month. And still leaks because of the complex roof design. Metal have some of these problems. But and I believe if you put the metal up there, you won't touch it again for probably 40 or 50 years.
We can certainly continue to develop it as an alternate and bid it as an alternate and see where it comes in.
I would suggest we do that because I'll tell you, if we're at 1.6 and we're at 2.5, And if we bid it and it came in at 2.5, I'd be tempted to go that route.
Okay. Well, you'll have hard bids. Maybe we'll do better.
If we can't insulate under the
Metal, it's gonna be noisy.
Okay, so,
No.
all right.
No, metal's, the metal actually will way less. It will shed snow load. You can insulate underneath it because you won't have the snow load.
But does he have that insulation?
Okay, so
take it into
At
his
Wowell,
price?
they, in the 95 project petition that they did all that, they fully insulated the ceiling space of the building. This is fully, so this is why, in this one, we only need to either change the shingles or do a metal roof without adding insulation. It's fully insulated.
Yeah.
And this space is
The
vented.
concern I have is not insulation under the roof. He's right, the snow load would be sliding off. The question I have is the noise it
Sound.
creates when it rains.
He's worried about the sound.
And because, they're trying to learn in that area and it's, I love the sound, but I don't know how much concentration I could have.
Are there other schools in the state or that you're aware of that have metal?
There's one in Central Falls that we're currently changing the roof on it that has a partial. Yes.
Every school in New Hampshire. Every school.
I think the factor is acoustically how it's treated,
Right, that's,
somewhere in the design, right, to pick up.
and that's probably not in the price you have right now currently to acoustically design it. That's all I'm saying. I'm just, I would love to have a metal roof because,
I do too, for the maintenance factor. but
Yes.
If it then causes issues with the education factor.
right, that's,
Okay, typically a metal roof will go on over what's called furrow. So there's a hollow air space. And then you'll hear it. When you're putting a metal roof down, I mean, we already got plywood or some form of wood up there. You're putting it down over wood and you're fastening it to wood. You're not gonna have that.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
You won't have that. I mean, I've got it in my barn.
I have mine over just metal and then I have it over wood, but I never really put a comparison in either building. I have two buildings, one with metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a big difference noise wise.
Yeah, I know one of mine
And
is
if
like
you-
a carport style and the other one is.
If you've got insulation in your ceiling and your roof is above it, you're probably not gonna hear it.
Yeah, I don't know. It just,
Especially if your R value is, I imagine your R value is somewhere in the neighborhood of 30.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, again, it's gonna be going down over a wooden substrate that's already there. It's not gonna be, you know what I'm talking about when I say purlin, right?
Yes.
So, you're going over like a solid wood base. There's no air spaces. There's none of that. You're not gonna get that sound. It's gonna be deadened by the wood that's below. Are you stand in my gazebo, whatever you want to call it, pavilion, and listen to the rain? Yeah, because it's over pearl, you're gonna hear it. It's great. You go in my barn where I had insulation and then the metal roof. So I don't think it's a factor in this case. I mean, we can certainly, I don't know if we could do a sound study or show somebody. designed-
We've discussed it with Lawrence Copley, our acoustical engineer, and he said we just need to make sure that ceiling space is well insulated.
And I'm just looking at the pictures and looking out at Metcalf, because there is no insulation, you got the drop ceiling, but you still got above that drop ceiling where the roof is. This still looks like there's some sort of an insulation.
That's the technical deck. You see, that's the technical.
Structural panel.
That's the
carry
panels.
carry the load of the house.
Right. Right, but that has some degree of thickness to it.
It does. They used to think that was insulation. That they used it for sound and insulation. That's why they built it. It's just minimum insulation.
But you've got, we'd have to check with the design, acoustic engineer, but I don't think that would be a problem.
So in this one, he did think that it would be good to add insulation since there's no insulation. Because of the
But
metal roof.
you'd be able to do that. Too.
Okay, but we go back to the old problem, that where do you put the insulation? We can't put it above the sheeting because the snow load problem will still
The
exist.
snow load takes care of itself when it sheds.
Mhm. Let me look into that.
What's the pitch on the roof? You know off the top of your head?
It's not very big. I would say it's maybe a 5 and
I
12.
think it's a five.
Yeah.
My barn is not heated. I'll get about a foot of snow up there. Gone. Sheds it. So there's no heat,
Let us look
and
at
then
it.
my barn is a 5 pitch on the top.
Okay,
Sides are, it's camped up. Just sheds it. So I think, I think that the metal will take care of itself, and then you could put the insulation on it. So in any event, just for the maintenance factor, I think that's, we still have to look at it. I think we
okay.
makes sense. to look at it.
You have to get some kind of opinion on this.
Oh, I'm not, again, I think, I
I
agree.
hate to put it out, but then have teachers complain like they did about even just that filtration systems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Classrooms cause water issues.
It's fine. I don't have a problem with having a sound study done. If it's, as long as it comes in, within reason,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna worry about it.
Okay,
An engineer says it's okay, I'm okay with it. You go further north, and all of your roofs are metal. And again, given we have wood and shingle roofs up there right now, you've got more deadening just because of, you're not gonna rip all that off. You're just gonna you're gonna pull off your shingles, and you're gonna lay it right down on your plywood. That's what you're gonna do. Screw it right down on plywood. So you're gonna get that insulation, you're gonna get the insulation, you're gonna get the deadening from just plywood.
we'll look at all that. But we'll proceed to design that and prepare that as an alternate. I'm interested to see what Brad would say too.
Yeah.
So the other portion of that building was the addition that was done at the same time that the high school was built. And in that addition, there are some hard ceilings like these, chip ceilings, which show some water penetrations through the space. We got up above, and what they did was they continued the corridor rating up above the ceiling and over the roof and then down. That's how they get the rating for the corridor. But the ductwork in that space is not insulated. And we think that at certain times, that ductwork may be condensing, and that's what's contributing to this. And so what we plan to do is insulate that ductwork.
There's still leaks over there too.
We gotta get up there.
We've replaced shingles, that's fine, over, so I think.
So we had Metcalf cost estimated also. No, we reviewed all of them already, but Metcalf, now these are not valid numbers anymore because this is with insulation above the sheeting. We're gonna send these out and be re-estimated. But you can see the difference between the shingle and the metal roof estimates. That shouldn't change, that difference shouldn't change much because you delete the rigid insulation from both of them. So I just want to make sure that you know that the cost estimate thought that was a couple $1 million delta between a shingle roof and a metal.
What was the budget for Metcalf?
Metcalf budget is 2.176.
Coming in at 1.5.
At Metcalf, we're coming in at 2.336. But mind you, that's with the rigid, yeah, That's with the rigid insulation. I think that once we eliminate the rigid insulation, which we have to do anyways, we will be within the budget for the shingle.
That's
And,
that's
you
my
know,
cap.
Metcalf.
Yeah, we get to build it next door.
Yeah, I do it every day.
It's just a name, we know what building we're talking about, it's just. All right,
So I think you have our schedule for the 3 projects. The roof project starts us at going back to cost estimating. We will be able to send out those documents next week. Then you have the benchmarks being submittal of schematic design to RIDE at the end of November, submittal of design development to RIDE at the end of January, 60% submittal to RIDE the week of the 9th in April. Then that puts us in a trajectory to be able to go out to bid in the middle of May and a award by the first week of June. I think that this is a worst case scenario. We give RIDE review 3 full weeks. During that time, we can keep working on the project's development, so we'll be able to make up 2 to 3 weeks in the schedule. So we're confident that schedule is going to be fine. The same schedule and development times and submittals is for the site package, which is the parking at the high school, the playground at Wawaloom, and some ADA access for the place. So again, we're comfortable with that schedule. Then the third package is the general contractors package, which includes the auditorium renovations, renovations to the science labs, and the new greenhouse. So that the site package for that greenhouse will be part of the general contractors package. Also, any excavation and running of utilities for the greenhouse will be part of the general contractors package. And we gave you the schedule for that also. And it has us coming back to you with cost estimates and your approval to submit for schematic design to RIDE by the end of November. Design development submittal to RIDE by the end of January. 60% submittal to RIDE by the second week of April, and then out to bid in mid-May. I think that in this schedule, we need to work hard to accelerate it. I'm confident that we could get 2 to 3 weeks ahead of what this worst case scenario that we're showing. I'm sorry. The one extension beyond the 3rd week of August for completion of construction that we show is the completion of the greenhouse. And it's manufactured in Holland, it's shipped, it takes a long time for that process and delivery approval of shop drawings. So that's why we foresee that could possibly extend beyond the end of the summer. We should think about, we've done this for other projects, is pre-purchasing the greenhouse. And that would be the district directly contracting with the greenhouse manufacturing, purchasing and starting that whole process ahead of time, and then just having the general contractor responsible for the installation of that. I want to look a little further into that, see what would be involved from the procurement process. But I just wanted to run that by you. I think that's probably the only way that we could realistically have the greenhouse completed by the end of next summer.
Yes.
We need to have it done first and start.
So we'll do some further research on
Quick question, you can only get this greenhouse just in Holland, there's nowhere else.
No, there are other greenhouses. I don't think there are other equal greenhouses. We've used this in Narragansett High School at the Botanical Garden in Roger Williams Park. And I think maybe what I should do is bring a consultant that can explain to you the difference between that greenhouse and general greenhouses. People that are clear on what the difference is always opt for this greenhouse. It's just a much higher quality than what we have. I hate to say that.
Back out the same exact.
We've never, so we cannot specify proprietary items. Every time we've bid this greenhouse out, there's never been an equal.
I do think that earlier we can get it in specifically because this is for a CTC program, which is a recruitment tool for revenue for the district.
Mhm.
So having that in the beginning of the summer allows families to visit and see when they're looking at schools for the upcoming year,
Mhm.
you know, what we have versus it's just a drastic difference.
What would it take to move that to more of a midsummer completion? Because I don't see it being completed early in the summer.
Yeah.
Midsummer would support.
I think you're definitely looking at a pre-purchase.
Well, I understand that, but it's
If you do
pre-purchase,
it.
but then you've still got site work to do, you still gotta get the foundations.
Yeah, but then that's doable. It's pretty standard stuff. You know, it's a rectangle, 4-foot foundation, 3-foot walls above the slab.
Yeah, but looking at this schedule, given the fact that we can't get right to move until the end of April, doesn't give us a whole lot of time. And then you go through your contract period, that's June, you don't get it
Yeah.
until June.
I think what we might consider is having a package special just for the greenhouse. And kind of
That way you can
expedite that
start
for
from
you.
there.
And even on the other packages, what we've done successfully in other districts is bid the work while it's in for final approval with RIDE as well, with their approval and understanding. Nothing would be awarded until they approve. So when they do award, at least we have the successful bidder ready to go, started shop drawings for foundations. So you can really start that work by late June versus July.
So why didn't we do that with heat? Okay, I'm done. That sounds like a plan.
They don't let you do it all the time, but when you have special cases, and this is especially important for the curriculum to get that even installed. Get a good to go on an early package.
I don't know, but I think heat's important.
I just want to go back to a point that Andrea brings up, because it will be absolute sand in the shorts in the community. It's the transition from, there's an existing greenhouse that will be occupied. I don't know, we'd have to talk to the science group, but they're probably gearing up their plants and everything during that period. That's probably their grow period. And we're gonna swoop in there with excavators and tear down equipment, and they're gonna go, where do my plants go? So I think we have to think about that a little bit as a building committee, community members, just for that transition
Yeah,
period.
the thing about that is we could work it out because they could still use that greenhouse if they're putting the other greenhouse in another location. So we could do the excavating in that location and still have that greenhouse running.
We can't do the parking lot.
Can't do the parking lot until that greenhouse is taken down, but that wouldn't be until end of June or middle of June,
But that
July.
still means that the new greenhouse has to be up for
Correct.
early. because
Before you
we
take
can't
the
do
old one down,
parking
the new
lot
one should be up, is what you're saying.
And to Bob's point, that the old greenhouses, the transition from the old greenhouse to the new greenhouse is gonna be a little bit controversial in this community anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's just something to keep our eye. And then Lou, just to go back, just so that we're all clear, that the site work, when we're talking about the parking lot is the new, that's gonna kind of accommodate the back area that's gravel now in the greenhouse.
That's
It's
right.
not gonna be the ring road.
No.
Not gonna be admin. So no curbing, no nothing, just that area.
Question, is the new greenhouse similar in size to the old one?
I think the total area of it is a little bigger than the existing. The proportions are not the same, but the total.
I have a question. Does the greenhouse include some kind of connectivity? Because that is a learning space. And kids will need to be able to use their laptops and stuff out there.
Oh, now I know what you mean by conductivity. Yes, we'll make sure of that.
Probably not a bad idea to have a couple of security cameras out there too, in case somebody breaks into it, we can see who did it.
So the contract period right now that we have is a month, if we do this separate, then I mean, feasibly, could we condense that? It would be a shorter window of time if it's just this one project, just the greenhouse?
Well, a lot of the work that a lot of people don't realize is if you had a contract with a greenhouse company, there's engineering, shop drawings and submittals, which you get out of the way, they get approved by the design team, and you can get it ordered. So that time, I'm gonna guess with overseas is probably, 6 to 8 week process. With submittals and stuff. So you get that done and out of the way early so you could order the unit to get it here, by midsummer for when you need it. Put it up. I don't know that
If
you
there's any way that we could get it earlier. If we do this separate,
I-
we're starting it.
I think the key is the greenhouse is one piece of the site work as it stands. I think the key is not necessarily creating it as a separate project, but making sure that we have a defined end date for the greenhouse that's satisfactory to all included, and then that the schedule is planned in that fashion so that the work gets done that way. Just gotta be, let's just say the end date wants to be July 15th, so we have time to get the plants growing and get the community invested in it for the, to get the kids here. We say July 15th, so now we take July 15th is the end date for that. We factor that into the site work, and that just means we have to start it sooner than what's on the current schedule. And to whose point, if we can agree that if we can agree on whatever greenhouse we're gonna buy, and get the plans and stuff developed by their engineers and get that approval done earlier and go to pre-purchase so that it's it's coming. The rest of it then falls into place as far as doing the excavation, putting in the foundations, and getting the electricity and the water, and everything else out there, and security cameras, internet, and all that stuff.
What's the constraint with having to do it in the summer? All the kids are in school, or is it just that it's impossible to do it any?
say we could buy the whole site work package that's associated with the greenhouse and the greenhouse early. Say we could go out in January. Can you live without a greenhouse that presumably needs to be knocked down to put the new foundations in?
No, it doesn't. It
It
doesn't.
doesn't, it's going to the new spot.
Two different
I'm
locations.
thinking if we're planting in the
That's
spring,
part of the
why are
answer.
we-
Maybe it's more
Your
package.
hold up is right and getting the final
That's my
approval.
question.
And if this is a small comprehensive package, I think that they can really expedite it. There's also nothing wrong, I don't think, starting construction before the kids get out for summer, because it's a remote area, it can be segregated with a fence, and that process could get started. Just so that it's ready when the greenhouse arrives.
I mean, most parents, if you have an eighth grader and you're looking at, CTE type of programs, you're doing that in the spring. You're not waiting until midsummer to pick a school, high school. So that's what I'm thinking.
I don't think have it done by mid-spring. I don't think that's feasible. The following year would be okay. Next year, I think the best we'll be able to do is mid-summer.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already in November, for all intents and purposes. If they started right now, probably the earliest you'd be able to break ground at this point would probably be end of March, early April.
Sorry, everybody, I have to take off. All right,
Thanks,
thank
Rob.
you. See you around.
And that, that brings on its own thing, winter conditions and so forth, to put that foundation in, just,
That changes
it's
it.
just more island. If you will. But the key would be to buy it early to each point. We have to look into what that entails and get some more information on, how soon it could be here. Make sure we can get the foundations in, so when it arrives, it goes right.
Got to factor in how much time it's going to stay in circles up in the ocean.
That's right.
Before it hits the port.
Yeah,
Thanks,
What
Joe.
port does it come in?
It's not right before, it's right at 95.
Okay, is there anything else that needs to be discussed? Are we good? Do we have a motion for adjournment?
I have something. If we receive the cost estimates back for Medcalf, and the shingle roof is within the budget, that means that both projects are within the budget. We'll keep the alternate for the metal roof, but can we submit to RIDE? I'd rather not have to wait for the next building committee meeting to submit to RIDE. As soon as we get those costs back, we want to be able to submit.
You want permission to submit the designs
For the roof, once we receive back the updated cost estimates, if they're within budget.
Okay, but what if we have an alternate, we decide to go with an alternate? Is
That-
that part of the bill?
No, that's identified as an alternate. And that alternate won't need to be selected till we get the actual bids from the contractors.
Know what the real market number is.
Okay, so what you're just talking about estimates.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with that personally. I don't know what the rest of the
keep it moving.
good,
I mean, if we want to keep this moving, the earlier the right, the better.
good, thank you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn, anybody?
Second.
All right. Good. Okay, Mike? Yeah. I'm gonna see you sometime.
Whitmer?
The sheet that you're using.
Hey, good night. Thank you.
Now we'll get back.
So,